It has been a hot minute since we've had a battle report on this channel, and there's plenty more of them coming. Don't worry about that. It's all well and good talking about what's changed, but showing what's actually changed I think is more important. And honestly, it's fun to get to play more games in and actually break down why things happened the way they did. This was a battle between the Chracian detachment versus the Orion's Wild Hunt detachment, which are two of the ways that I think are most interesting and maybe the best ways to play the respective High Elf and Wood Elf factions. Very quickly, before I bring you the word from our sponsor, I will say that I'm going to be at the TSN Arena on the 16th and 17th of August. It is a 2,600 point event, so if you're interested in going to that event, the link is in the description down below, just to their page in general, but that is one that you may end up playing against me at, so if you're interested, do check that out. This video is brought to you by the TSN Arena, the #1 place to go for Old World and Age of Sigmar tournaments here in Nottingham. Rob runs a wide range of events, from 500 point forays all the way up to 2,600 point mega battles, where single models like dragons have a less pronounced effect on the game and you see bigger bricks of infantry. Of course, there's still the normal 2,000 point battles, but even in there's some room for experimentation, with fan favourite events like the river battles going incredibly quickly. The TSN Arena is located on the outskirts of Nottingham City Centre near the Motorpoint Arena, and it is conveniently located in the middle of plenty of parking spots within walking distance of multiple hotels and two great places to go for food, including Snenton Market, which has a wide range of options. So, if you're interested in going to a venue where there's plenty of table space, the comfiest chairs that I've been in at any venue, and free drinks all weekend, go to www.tsnarena.com to buy your tickets today. Link in the description. I think for a little while, maybe just permanently going forwards, what I will do at the start of these battle reports is I will bring up an example of what the actual mission is. So as a reminder, this is drawn battle lines. So this is effectively diagonal deployment, but it's sort of soft diagonal deployment. So it's like the normal line across the center of the board, you know, like this, but it is a little bit different in that you're skewed more heavily down to one side of the board, and I'll use a different colour so you can see that a little bit more easily. So, we've got our deployment here, very happy with that one. What does that actually make difference in terms of? Well, you can't really deploy down in this little bit of the board. Shout out to Lewis's events, who does go 3 inches in down here, just making the board a little bit more comfortable to deploy in, but that's not what we're talking about here. But it means that you're really going to be putting the bulk of your forces, if you're playing ranked up units, in this section of the board. So that really does limit you in terms of where you can play. And because we're doing strategic locations 3, which is 1, 2, 3 in the center, you are probably going to be fighting, realistically, trying to contest this one, hold this one pretty comfortably, and your opponent's going to do the same on the other side. They're going to be fighting for the center here and looking to contest this objective on their left-hand flank as well. So pretty simple there. What are the rules that come with this mission? First of all, normal setup. Whoever finishes deploying first, including scouts, gets the +1 to the roll-off, and then you decide whether you're going first or second. As a reminder, going second is good in some missions now. Previously, it was you probably just wanted to go first all the time, but going second can be an advantage at this point. Other than deployment, you both roll a d6. If either of you roll a 1, both players must put a single unit from their army as infantry or cavalry into reserve. Why does this matter? Well, I'm playing a Death Star. I've made sure that my list isn't stymied by this, in that if I only had 1 Death Star unit and then loads of monsters or something like that, it would be really, it would be a real problem. But in this case, it's literally just, you know, I've got 10 spearmen that I can throw into reserve if needs be. Neither of us had to put anything into reserve this turn. Obviously, this is like the old meaty engagement, which was terrible. This is a fixed version of meaty engagement. But yeah, nothing went into reserve in this game, and then it just explains how reserves go. We went with fixed turn length 6 turns, just the sort of standard you'd expect. Breaking down reserves here, which didn't matter, and again, strategic locations 3, and also we use baggage train. Strategic locations, the way that works is at the end of each player turn, if you're controlling an objective by being within 6 inches of it and being unit strength 10 core units, then you get 30 points per objective you're holding, and reminder that is not just your turn, it's your opponent's turn, so if you have 1 model on an objective for the full 6 battle rounds, you can get, what, 360 points from it, so it's definitely worth doing. And you've got the baggage train, which is you can try and destroy your opponents to get 250 points, or you can hold yours and or your opponents for 100 points each at the end of the game. What are the lists? This is for an event that we both locked our lists into at the start of the month, But we both would have changed and both talked about the changes that we'd make to our lists after the fact. So I'm running Core Hill as my general. Core Hill is basically a moderately tanky footlord in terms of an elf who hits pretty hard at initiative 7, doesn't have strikes last, doesn't have strikes first, just sits there with initiative 6 and elfin reflexes. So pretty decent, hits pretty hard, strength 6, AP 3, rerolling 1s to hit, not too shabby there. 175 points, not a lot to complain about. I went for 2 Archmages. I think there's 2 ways to play this sort of Death Star, the full White Lion brick, and you either go for the unit that is just all eggs in one basket, or you can go for some chariots outside to support it. And I do like both builds, but in this case I went all eggs in one basket. So I've got an Illusion Caster level 3. I've got a Great Blade here, also a Chracian Hunter, otherwise I wouldn't be able to join the White Lions. Power Scroll, Lore Familiar, Seed of Rebirth, Obsidian Lodestone. This is the main thing I'd change. I'd like to go for Magic Resist 2 on this unit. I'm currently only Magic Resist 1. But otherwise, I've got a 5-up regen so that I don't fall over immediately. I can pick my spells with Lore Familiar, and when there's an important spell to cast, I've got a Power Scroll to make sure I get that off, or make it more likely to get it off. Having the Great Blade, it's free if you pay for the Chracian Hunter, which, again, you have to join the unit, so you may as well. You get a couple of Strength 5, AP 3 attacks, nothing to sniff at. On to the second wizard, very similar. In this case, I've gone level 4, Power Scroll, Seed of Rebirth, you may have seen this before. Silvery Wand, meaning I know a 5th spell. I can obviously only cast 4 spells because the FAQ changed how casting works. I've got a Ruby Ring of Ruin as well, and then Chracian Hunter with a Chracian Greatblade. Now, this caster, obviously the Illusion Caster brings Glittering Robe, so -1 to be hit, and then also the control pieces. So I can go for Spectral Doppelganger if I want to, I can go for Miasmic Mirage, I can go for Column of Crystal. That's the sort of spells I pick up there. This caster, this makes it from, takes it from being just an army that can't score any points against evasion, to having an actual evasion battle plan, because I've got a Ruby Ring of Ruin in here, and I've got a good chance of rolling a Fireball as well, which means that most of the time I'm going to be able to drop 2 Fireballs a turn on enemy skirmishing units to try and pick up points. This Death Star, people a lot of the time aren't going to want to interact with, so having something in the middle of the board that also has output in terms of magic is very strong, and it still gives me access to Arcane Urgency, so I can move them further, be more aggressive with them, or get out of like multi-charges. It also gives me access to Oaken Shield, giving the unit a ward save, because the unit, you can layer a lot of stuff on there, but they are pretty weak in terms of defenses. This is just a bug with how it's reported on Warhol. I've got a Chracian Chieftain who has again got a Seed of Rebirth, giving them the regen save there. I've also gone for the Sacred Incense, which gives me a -1 to be shot, so stacking that with Glittering Robes and then also Standing in a Wood can give me -3 to be shot against Ballistic Skill Shooting, really strong there. He's also got the Chracian Greatblade, just, on the profile, and on top of that I've given him a Banner of Resilience, making the entire Death Star toughness 4, which I think is really strong for Elves. So once you've put all the buffs on the White Lion brick, they're toughness 4, they've got a 5-up armor save, they've got +1 to their save against non-magical shooting, they're -2 to 3 to be hit, depending on what you're, being shot by. There's a lot of stuff in there that makes them really hard to interact with. The main unit here, the White Lions, there's 28 of them, they've got full command, they've got veteran, I've given them the War Banner as well. This is an open order unit, which is quite nice in terms of positioning, because you get that free pivot at the end of your move, but it does mean you lose a little bit of combat res, so just stacking some more combat res in with giving them a War Banner is quite nice as well. I also gave them a Gem of Courage, which lets you add an extra d6 to one of your break tests once per game. I don't think I'd bother with that. They've got Veteran, I've got a Battle Standard Bearer, they're stubborn as well. It just kind of, everything in there all adds up. I've also got 2 units of Chracian Woodsman. These things I think are fantastic. I liked them before, I really like them now. They're very sort of beefy scoring units. 14 effectively White Lions in skirmish with strength 4 warbows. They've got one unit's got Vanguard, one unit's got Ambush. This way I can keep my drops low if I really need to go first against, for example, some sort of really heinous shooting list and I want to get onto an objective early. Nice stuff there. And I've got a unit of 10 Spearmen, and I have upgraded them to give the unit champion as well. This is just going to either sit in marching column and move on to an objective, or sit on a baggage train. It's a fairly versatile unit. You can use it like War Dogs as well, but just way more expensive War Dogs. For my opponent was running Orion's Wild Hunt, and I think this is a really good list. I like how much offense you can bring. We've been working on lists together. Dean is actually one of my coaching students, but there is, I think, tweaks. We're looking at going down to 2 units of Wild Riders and maybe more scoring, but there's definitely some fun stuff in here to build around. First of all, we've got the Glade Lord on a dragon. This is a fairly standard challenge build. We've got Meteoric Iron and Talisman of Protections for a 5-up, 5-up that can't be reduced in terms of armor save and ward save. Aspect to the Cat, so you get a reroll hits in a challenge and you get some more armor bane. We've got the Resplendent Illuminescence to make our great weapon magical attacks in case we come up against Ethereal. An Annoyance of Netlings to make enemies -1 to hit us in a challenge. And then otherwise just a great weapon. So kind of beefy. This is the sort of thing that I would have worried about running prior to the nerf to poison shooting, but now you absolutely can. It's backed up by a couple of captains that are probably going to be joining the Wild Rider unit. So we've got both of them on stags with shields. They've only got a 3-up armor save, but both of them also bring magic resist too. And because Wild Hunt doesn't have access to good wizards, I think magic resist is really important on those squishy units. Now, we change things up. I can talk about that at the end, but both of them have magic resist too. One of them has got a Sword of Might. One of them's got a great weapon. Fairly standard stuff. Wild Rider Kindred also gives them a lot of attacks. So they've got Furious Charge and Frenzy as well. Getting them up to 5 attacks each is just pretty beefy in terms of output that you're adding into a Wild Rider unit. The units that they're going to be joining, we've got 2 units in core of Wild Riders with shields and a unit champion. In fact, I don't think he even went for unit champions. Yeah, no unit champions there, although they would work quite well in this sort of list. A unit of 7 Glade Riders. They have reserve move, True Flight Arrows, and I believe they had a musician in there as well. There is also a unit of 6 Wild Riders with shields, not in the core, so this doesn't score, but it does have a unit champion that also has a single Obsidian Lodestone, so it's got magic resist 1, and then some screening units as well. There's an eagle in here, which for some reason isn't on the list. There are 7 Wood Elf, 7 beast packs, so it's 5 hounds, 2 beastkeepers. This is just a relatively cheap screening slash anti-shooting list. You can put it in front of your expensive stuff and make it so the people are shooting at you -2 to hit with ballistic skill, all of that good stuff. And a couple of units of Warhawk Riders. They've gone for the Spirit of Kurnos, which gives them impetuous but also +1 attack each. Furious Charge. I think that these are really solid screening units. I do like them, and also having True Flight Arrows on there. There's just enough chip shooting in here that you can pick away at enemy units. Remember, in this game, you don't actually have to kill entire units for something to be effective. If your opponent's got units of, say, 14 Chracian woodsmen, if you kill 5 of them, you get them down to a point where they don't get to score objectives. So something like that is still worth doing, and I think the True Flight Arrows are perfect for that sort of playstyle. Apologies, I seem to have knocked my my camera when I was recording the last bit. But anyway, so as you can see here, deployment, just as a reminder, it's this sort of deployment here where you're going corner to corner and you've got still a pretty decent chunk between the two, but you are looking at more of a diagonal angle there. So we've got on my side of the board, I've got the baggage train here. We use the Iron Demon to represent. The Warhall's good, but it only lets you have 1 set of secondary objectives at the moment, so we're using Strategic Location 3, which are these 3 here. And the Iron Demons we just spawn in because they're the closest thing to a train that you can get in this game, and they're on the right base size as well, so that works out perfectly. So as you can see, lots of scoring on the board for us to interact with. We've both also brought our own woods. So my wood I put here, and my opponent's wood is over here. Now the thinking is, for me, the Chracian detachment is allowed to put their wood near the centre of the board, which is weird, unlike the Wood Elf one, but I can't put it near special features. What I wanted to do is I knew that I wanted to get near to the scoring, so there's a 6-inch bubble here, and the 6-inch bubble of the objective sits something like this. And I made sure that this little bit here, if I just delete what I've drawn, there was basically a spot here on the other side of the wood where I could stand, not be seen, theoretically, but I could still score the objective. And I wanted to use that to try and get a little bit of aggressive positioning forwards. My opponent put theirs down over here, and it gave them some basically just room to hide their Glade Riders behind, which I thought was a good move. We did talk about deployment after the fact, and I thought that my opponent could have been a lot more aggressive, like the Glade Lord and Dragon. I haven't really got anything that can threaten it, so we went through deployment afterwards and would change that up. But in terms of you know, your opponent's brought a big Death Star, it's a little bit uncomfortable to face if you're not super used to playing against them. So a lot of screening set up for my opponent as well. You can see there's the Warhawk Riders over here, and you've got an Eagle here, for example. Lots of screening the Wild Riders. Again, I don't have a good list to Frenzy Bait, but also it's pretty important to make sure that you're not going to be caught unawares if I do some sort of shenanigans. The unit of woodsmen down the bottom left did vanguard forwards just a little bit in terms of making sure that they were in range of the objective in the left-hand side there. So I'm set up to score some, 30 points, even if my opponent goes first, if they don't take that objective off me. Did the roll-off. My opponent also used the... I forget the name of it. It's called it's not called Spirit of Kurnos, Arrow of Kurnos maybe. The rule where you get to make a shot at your opponent's general. It's just an auto strength 3 hit with no armor saves or regens. And yeah, Corhill's my general, and he's T4 in the unit because he's got the banner, but he doesn't have a ward save. So Corhill took a wound, which gave me an additional +1 to go first. We did talk about it. I don't think that is the right thing to do. I think it's a waste of... it doesn't really add much, but it didn't matter because I rolled a 6 to go first anyway. So I was rocking an 8 for the first turn roll off. My opponent had something like a 3. Moving into my first turn, as you can see, I move up into the center of the board, and this unit here is now in range of scoring this objective. On the right-hand side, I just move up a little bit to try and get some line of sight to be able to shoot into the Wild Riders, and I move a little bit over to the left with the other unit of Chracian Woodsmen. So my Woodsmen have moved out in each direction just to try and draw line of sight up here and also this way. And my I've decided to touch the wood, even though I set my wood here so that I could hide behind it without risk. I knew that this turn, if I walk forwards and I touch the wood, I'm actually not at risk of being charged. I'm out of range of everything that matters. So I fire my Ruby Ring of Ruin this way, and I kill the Eagle, and then I fire my normal Fireball this way, and I kill one, I think I do 3 wounds to the Warhawks. So I do some good chip damage in terms of clearing up units that need to be, they're going to be annoying, they're going to cause my shooting to, be hitting with penalties, all of that good stuff there. Afterwards, I unload with the unit over here, and I do a single wound to the Wild Riders, even though I've got rid of the cover that was making them harder to shoot. I'm only hitting on 5s after moving in long range. I don't get all that much done, but still worth going for. And on this flank, I have a little bit more luck where I managed to do the last 3 wounds to the Warhawk Riders and take them off the board. So a pretty nice turn 1 for me. Very happy with that in terms of putting my presence on the map. Going into Dean's turn, Dean just starts staging forwards. And again, I think Dean could have been more aggressive here. The main thing he wanted to avoid was not being charged. He doesn't want me to charge him in here. If I can pick my fights with this unit, it is a bad time for him, but obviously in this case that didn't happen. So he brings forwards and he does a nice little trick over here, which I do like and would recommend if people are bringing sort of squishy units like Wild Riders, if you're worried about enemy shooting. He's got one model just behind the lip of the hill here, so at no point are any of my models going to be able to see 100% of it. So by default, I'm going to be shooting, and he's going to get light cover on this unit here. So really like that move from Dean. Other than that, he brings the dragon forwards. He makes sure that he has some Glade Riders in range of the objective here, and he's just starting to get his own scoring as well. The scoring I've been tracking off the board here. Maybe I think there's a better way to do it. I'll see if I can work that out for future videos. But for now, I have, at the end of my turn, scored plus 60 points on turn 1, and then I've scored plus 60 points again, and coming into the end of Dean's turn, he's scored plus 30 points. So I'm already starting to rack up a big lead. I've got 120, he's only got 90, and it's definitely a lead that I feel like I can grow over the course of the game. He's playing a list that takes people off scoring very well. I'm playing a list that racks up scoring very well, so important for me to be getting those points as early as possible. Coming into my turn 2, and it's pretty okay. Again, I'm just showing the list's strength in terms of its ability to do a lot of shooting. I do have to play respectful of the dragon over here. Obviously, dragons generally can't deal with infantry on their own now. They have to be supported by something else. But the Chracian Woodsman, I've been running without a unit champion. Maybe that's a mistake, but I feel like because they're skirmish, the only point of combat res I'm going to be getting from them is the +1 infantry outnumber. I think I probably just lose into a dragon anyway, unless I also go for like putting a banner in there and a musician as well, and by that point we're losing a lot of points. So I've just got to make sure that I'm walking out of range of the enemy. I don't want to get charged by that dragon with a unit that's definitely going to lose to it. On the other flank, this unit over here was positioned so it could shoot up around the hill, but now there's nothing to shoot, so we're just going to move forwards like so, get close to the centre of the action. I think I put some pot shots into this unit of Wild Riders over here, which is my main focus. Between this unit shooting with their warbows and this unit trying to light it up with the Ruby Ring of Ruin and the regular fireball, I do manage to kill the entirety of the Wild Rider unit, even through the magic resist, which is really nice. One of the changes Dean and I are looking to put in is some sort of dispel threat for the list. Magic resist is good, but I think also having some consistent dispel option in there is really nice. So we're left with just the Stag Lord over here, which is obviously a problem for the Stag Lord, but he doesn't run away. He's still out there ready to take names and kick ass. Other than that, pretty slow turn for me. I'm just chipping away what I can. I've put a column of crystal here just to make it a little bit more difficult for my opponent to get lots of charges in. What I really don't want is for him to get a good multi-charge here, multi-charge here, multi-charge here. I did end up moving my unit, so this unit has moved over a couple of inches because I was just within 19 inches of the charge over here, and I've made sure that I'm not. But as it stands, I'm just doing another setup turn, thinning out my opponent, who's being a little bit more cagey than they should be realistically. Going into Dean's turn, and this is the sort of, okay, we've got to respond, we've got to move things over to the centre of the board, let's try and chip away. Unfortunately for Dean, this Stag Lord here is frenzied, so he does have to actually charge forwards. It has to be Wild Rider Kindred, because, you know, it gives you Frenzy, gives you Furious Charge, but it also gives you Counter Charge, which you lose if you put a Stag into the unit otherwise. But the reason the Stags are really important is they do have First Charge, and it does make them actually able to contend, you know, Wood Elves as an army, able to contend with the big Death Stars if you put enough Wild Riders and some Dragons in there as well. Turning off rank bonuses is a really big way of doing that. Not only does it make it easier to break the unit, but you can remove leadership for, you know, any of those warband units if you're charging into goblins or Skaven or whichever units there are that are relying on warband, Bretonnian peasants, lots of stuff there that you can break more easily. So the frenzied Stag Lord does have to run in, which is unfortunate, but it does declare a challenge, and I can't remember, I feel like I accepted the challenge there just to, you know, I sacrificed one regular White Lion just to be like, okay, I don't even want to risk you doing damage to my characters. You can see that here he's in base to base with one of the wizards. I really didn't want the wizards to die, so I think I just accepted or challenged with a regular White Lion. Basically just saying, I'm going to win on combat res. I've got loads of static combat res there. We did end the turn before we moved it, but if I just very quickly flick it over to my turn, you can see where I ended up. Yes, look, I do walk forwards. And the Stag Lord has run all the way back here. So I have come forwards to here with the I was a little bit further back, but the intent is that I'm going to be able to charge forwards as well, which is going to be really punishing for my opponent. In terms of, ignore this here, this is just an artifact of Warhol and characters, units dying, and not the models dying themselves. But yeah, so in my opponent's turn here, you can see charges forwards with the Stag, just tries to position forwards as well. The Dragon is up on the hill, obviously looking for a flank charge into me over here. We did sort of play around with angles because initially Dean was thinking about trying to threaten here, but I said, you know what, I'm just going to march this way if I need to, at which point you're going to be unable to charge me with the Dragon. Makes it really hard for you to interact with me. So just make sure that you're covering all of the angles over here so that the Death Star can't get away, basically. That's your best bet. Other than that, the Warhawk Riders move forwards, do a little bit of shooting over here. Don't manage to do any wounds, which is nice. Same as the Glade Riders, you know, not really chipping away anything, but starting to threaten flanks while still being out of, you know, any real interaction threat point. The Ruby Ring of Ruin is not able to get over here. The double fireball can't hit into anything that hasn't got magic resist at the moment, so not too worried there. Dean's turn ends. Obviously, I get more points in terms of scoring. I get 60, he gets 30 again, so it really is starting to rack up. And as you can see, I do just sort of move forwards a little bit over here so I can get some shots off. This unit over here, I think, moves forwards as well, just to make sure that I'm in range of the objective comfortably, even if my opponent comes forward to try and steal it, but also to do some shooting up here. And most importantly, I declare a charge into this unit of Wild Riders. Now, obviously the Wild Riders are blocked in terms of they can't get past this unit of Warhounds. But also, I'm an infantry unit, and you can't countercharge infantry. So I feel very comfortable going for this. Even though I'm in cover, I measure it out, and I think I was 7.4 inches away. Or I might have been even 6.9. I needed a 2 or 3 on the dice to make the charge. In fact, I think I needed a 2. I can't remember exactly what it was. Basically, declare the charge here, feel very comfortable, because what this is going to do is it's going to get me out of charge arc of the dragon, which is the thing I'm really worried about. I don't want to get charged over here while also getting charged by other multiple things. A charge goes wrong, it fails, and the only saving grace that I have is that I have managed to, over here, cast Miasmic Mirage onto the unit of Magic Resist 1 Wild Riders that have got the unit champion there. So this unit's not going to threaten to charge me, which means that given that I'm out here in the open, I've got multiple charges that can go into me, but it's only going to be a unit of dogs, a unit of Wild Riders, and a dragon. So it's very difficult for... it's harder for my opponent to break me, and I don't feel too bad about it. Other than that, I do shoot over here. I've got the unit of Woodsmen just really doing great work. This is a perfect matchup for Chracian Woodsmen, I've discovered. You know, they've got a 4-up save against enemy shooting. They are wounding on 3s with their strength 4 warbows. Yes, they get outranged, but it doesn't matter too much when you're an elf. I'm eating good over here. I managed to do 3 wounds to this unit of Warhawk Riders, which is fantastic, and just starting to chip away. I think I do 1 wound over here with the warbows from the unit of Woodsmen over here as well. So a little bit of a terrible turn for me in terms of where I've left myself. But this is the first time that I've run this very specific loadout for the Death Star, and I'm thinking, you know what, there's a lot of investment in here. I think I might be able to take the charge. Which, we go over to my opponent's turn, and very quickly before I flick it over, my opponent does declare charging here, just in terms of where they have to move, and then also charging here with the dragon. It's a 3-way charge, and it feels pretty likely that he's going to get all of those charges off, and I'm going to be in potentially a little bit of trouble. Well, he does get all of the charges off, but it doesn't go as he planned. So in terms of here, the charges, all of them make it, and I'm sat here. We've got a dragon in the flank. We've got the dogs over here, and then we've got the Wild Riders deployed like so. That's great. Other than that, you can see that the unit over here, the very small unit of Warhawks, has run away. They are looking to not get run over by just my fantastic strength 4 warbow shooting, which before 1.5 I never even worried about, but now feels pretty good. This has taken them down below unit strength. Well, I guess they're currently unit strength 6. They were never able to score the baggage train, but they're just at real risk of coming forwards and being picked apart. This unit over here, the Glade Riders, again, do a little bit of chip damage over here and then reserve backwards, but not all that much. And it's really just the combat that we're talking about. So how does the combat go? Terribly. Now, I will say, I roll a little bit high, my opponent rolls a little bit low, but, all of the attacks are going in, and they're -1 to hit because of Glittering Robes. I'm weapon skill 5 already, so he's hitting on 5s with his Glade Riders, which is not ideal. He's also then only wounding on 3s because I'm toughness 4. And I've still got, a 5-up ward save, which I roll pretty well on and save a lot of wounds in there as well. On top of that, I've got a lot of combat res. I've got a lot of wounds, even with the first charge, because he does turn off my static combat res there from the couple of ranks that I've got. But he does manage, I do manage to hit him with like a hammer hand, I think gets through the combat, the magic resist. I've got Core Hill, who takes his pound of flesh. Those dogs that he had to charge in over here, just to make way so that he's cleared up the space for the other unit, they end up giving me just 7 combat res, which is really nice. And not only do I weather the charge, only taking 6 casualties, and I think a wound on one of my my wizards, yeah, absolutely fine. I tank it, I win massively, and I chase after my opponent, not quite making contact with the unit over here, which is a shame, because I ended up very close to that unit, meaning that I didn't get Furious Charge on my next turn when I was able to declare a charge into my opponent. Yeah, there was something noteworthy on this side here. So we've got the charge, and we've got the dragon here. If you are in this situation, you're the dragon player, make sure you understand what unit you're into. So we talked it through, and I said, do make sure you challenge, because all of the white lions can challenge. So what I can do is I can challenge with a model in this back corner here, and because the only model that's able to accept it is the dragon, and he's not in the fighting rank here. This is a little bit contentious. There are definitely arguments about how this works, but as I understand it, because I'm challenging here, the only model that's able to accept it would be the dragon. The dragon would then be locked in the challenge. So just got to, when you're doing the charge, make sure that you're not going to get caught out by a unit that can challenge with every model, or if there's, a character in a flank or something like that, make sure that you're soaking the challenge yourself with your own unit champion. Anyway, by the by, I won combat, didn't catch anyone, but I did kill a good number of models. I think I wiped basically the entire Wild Rider squad here. So that's just the character that was running off on his own. And, also, the Glade Captain failed to rally. Which is heartbreaking. It was really rough. It was one of those where start of turn, my opponent rolled his rally, I think it was an 11 on the dice. I was like, oh wait, you've got rallying cry on the other captain here, so that was your rallying cry leadership test. Why don't you roll a proper one now? I was like, oh yeah, fantastic. And then just rolls a 10, and his start was like 19.1 inches away or something from the dragon, so only had leadership 9. So this chap does unfortunately run off the board, which is pity breaking. But it's a lot of things going wrong for the Wood Elf player in this game, I think we can say. Coming into my turn 4, we don't have to talk about this in too much depth because it is kind of just mopping up the pieces. My Death Star charges into the frenzied unit, so they take the charge. Unfortunately, do die, and I get to reface. I think I managed to overrun into the fleeing captain on Stag as well. Catch that. Terrible news for Dean, unfortunately. And then I've positioned to threaten towards the enemy baggage train. The rest of what I'm doing is I'm setting up here, trying to get forward so I can get bow range over here if needed. And also this unit can go forwards and threaten in terms of trying to get this unit of Glade Riders below unit strength 10. Just make it so that you can't even score the baggage train at the end of the game. Trying to squeeze any last points I can out of it. In terms of how Dean plays and to try and grab the last points, the dragon runs out, does a breath weapon, does a few wounds, nothing too big there. Everything else just takes some sniper shots, and then over here tries to do some damage, I think over this way, and then reserve moves away. This unit just sits in the corner trying to conserve points, the last gasps of when the game is going poorly. You can see here that I'm trying to squeeze points out, not really able to catch much on my turn. Comes into Dean's last turn 6, and I think he does have a chance at doing something. Yes, he moves the dragon forwards and has a last gasp of not necessarily being able to score any points, but ideally getting this unit below unit strength 10. So he moves up, breath weapons, hits something like puts 11 models under the template, gets something like 9 hits, only kills 1. Pretty devastating. And then this unit over here also tries to take some pot shots to get them below, but doesn't finish them off, and ends as a fairly crushing victory. Now, we didn't actually add up the exact points, but what I can tell you is if we go to... we can skip through my turn 6. If we go to turn 7 here, you can see how much scoring we had. So in terms of these little banners that we're using as markers, I was playing very aggressively around this one here with my Death Star, and then this one. And Dean wasn't really able to contest this. I think he probably could have put it, the Wild Riders up here turn 1 to try and do some damage early. But what that meant is that I ended up with, he had 210 points in terms of secondaries, and I had, from the banners, 570, because there's 19 there, plus 100 points. So I got 670. So I got over triple his secondary points in terms of scoring. And that shows why you've got to be so aggressive with trying to take, a scoring list off these sort of objectives. So just to round out what I'm talking about in terms of, taking me off the objectives, if we look at what Dean could have done aggressively early, I think knowing that I'm going to try and play around this section of the board, and this is hopefully useful if you're playing into this sort of list where you've got some sort of Death Star, whether it's Undead, whether it's White Lions, just a 500-point brick of characters with supportive units in there as well. I think this is worth looking at. So the middle point is going to be hard to contest. So in my mind, the way that you want to contest this against the Death Star player is you probably put aggressive pressure on over here and over here early. So I've got limited units. I've got the Chracian Woodsman over here, like so, and then I've got this Spearman unit that is not going to interact, not going to move, it's just going to stand there and score in this particular matchup. So how do we want to try and thin them out? Well, what you could do is you could send your Wild Riders to come down here and try and contest, and you can send your Wild Riders and your Warhawk Riders over here to try and contest. If you can get rid of, let's put this up, yeah, if you can get rid of this unit and this unit, suddenly you can surround me very easily. Now, I will be racking up points in the center here, so this theoretically, you know, you move forwards on turn 1, you charge on turn 2, you can then redirect and start moving forwards on turn 3. By that point, this unit here is racked up, what, 3, 6, 180 points? You can, on your side of the board, also be scoring these two, because you're putting pressure on here. So you put your aggressive play forwards, put your aggressive play forwards, and then put a backup unit behind it, something that can score if you have got those. Theoretically, you can have, not 360, let's say 300 points, in terms of you moved onto here on, the end of turn 1. So you're actually doing better in terms of the secondary scoring. And it's not just watching the Death Star player ramp up points. Obviously, this is a list that can interact at range. So while you're going to potentially wipe out this unit here, that's what, about 500 points in terms of scoring. You're going to take some losses. So maybe let's say you take similar points of losses in scoring. However, at that point, you then get to try and set up the multi-charge. So you've got some Wild Riders here. You've got, maybe a Dragon here. You've got some Wild Riders in the front. Maybe you send the Warhawk Riders in the front as well. I think there's a lot that you can do to face off against this kind of list, and people are going to definitely adapt. And the more mobile your list is, so if you're Bretonnians or if you're Wood Elves or any sort of fast cav army, I think you have good tools to deal with them. But just remember that a Death Star like this is a stat check, and you're going to really struggle to beat it if you just go into the front of the unit. So try and pick off the extra aspects here, while still scoring and denying points to the Death Star player as much as possible. And then in the back half of the game, that's where you want to go charge here, double charge in the front. Maybe even get a cheeky stag in the backside there. Something like that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Ground Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put, and also if you are one of the Grail Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.